Okay, I want to get unemotional here. I told you that we have a very simple succession device, and when you came back and formed the partnership with us in '91, we went to a capital account system. Capital account is, as you know, an LLC is shares of the business. Like a corporation has shares, capital account is the shares of an LLC. And originally, how much of that capital account did you have?
Okay, so in '91, I'm traditionally a bit tight with my money, and I worked with Agway, and while I was working with Agway, I was buying cows at home. They had a thrift plan there, where they matched some dollars. So I put as much money in that as I could. I was fortunate or unfortunate. I wasn't married. I didn't own a house. I obviously didn't have any kids. So so I plowed all my money into these cattle and savings. And so that '91, I was able to bring $90,000 into the business. So by taking that cattle and turning it over. So I got $90,000 worth of capital account back, and at the time I was also able to go to Farm Credit and borrowed another $100,000 to put with it, and so I put that in. So I was able to start off with $190,000, whereas my brothers and sisters weren't able to do that.
To start the partnership, Mary Lou and I gifted each of our 5 children equally. And there's been a lot of discussion here tonight about equitable and equal. Our business's earnings are good enough so that we could be equal. And John did not receive, he received the exact same amount of his siblings. And the various siblings took part of their capital account. Jeff Muller out in Missouri used part of his inheritance, if you will, as down payments on a farm, and he's got farming in his blood. Now, I want to tell you that my succession plan has not been all that successful. I had 3 sons and 2 daughters, and only one son had a patience enough to put up with my stubbornness, and that's John here. The others, we love them dearly. Mary Lou is the glue that holds the family together. We've treated each one of those children equally when it comes to finances. But John, by being thrifty and borrowing from Farm Credit for additional capital account, has been able to build his share of the business to 35%. And by gifting, Mary Lou and I have cut our share, which originally was 90 and is now down to 30 or perhaps a little bit less. So what we're doing as an estate plan, if you will, a succession plan, is gifting to not only the children, but we have 13 grandchildren. And we're allowed to gift to each one of those. We give $25,000 a year, 12.5 from me and 12.5 from Mary Lou. Leave a little extra for Christmas gifts and a few other things. But so I am not sure whether we're ruining those grandchildren. Now, it's a trust. Jeff Fetter, who is one of the sponsors of this meeting here today and contributed to our... Jeff's not here, is he? Anyway, Jeff Fetter was our lawyer out of Syracuse that drew up the trust for the grandchildren. And by gifting each year for the last 5 years or so, they're at $25,000 each a year, we have transferred our ownership to not only the 5 children but to the 13 grandchildren. So gradually we are cutting down our ownership share. However, the business has done so well. We're still cutting it down, but not as much as. It's not going to be 0 when I die, so we're not quite getting it all transferred over, but there is a $5 million exemption on federal tax. Okay, we're looking at a young prospective people to be in partners. And the handout that we handed out, well, first of all, very quickly, in our partnership agreement, I wrote in there, the purpose of this operating agreement is to form a business that will survive long after the original members, that's Mary Lou and I, have long been retired and gone. I have put my whole life into building Willow Bend Farm, and in return it has rewarded both me and my family. I'm convinced that this farm will continue to richly reward future partners if, that's a big if it is carefully managed. And that's what this whole conference is about here today. Naturally, I'd like to see the company remain in the Muller family. It will contribute greatly to the Muller family finances many years to come, if, again that if, well run. Okay, the survival of the business should be the main objective of our company. If members of the Muller family cannot be found, and that could very well be, with the interest, dedication, and skills necessary to be operating members to run the farm, then outside members should be brought in. And that's where Ryan and Johnny come in. Outside members to be brought in that do have the necessary interest, dedication, and skills. And so far they've shown that in spades to run the farm properly. To summarize, the primary goal is the survival of the business, not keeping it in the family. The primary goal is to survive that business. Secondary goal is keeping it in the family if possible. That is in the preamble to our partnership agreement. One of the things in the partnership agreement, before I forget it, is that if you want out, if we think John Muller is running this thing into the ground, and I want to pull the rest of my money out, or anyone, any of the new partners, there's a limit to how much you can pull out, and that's 5% a year plus the interest at Farm Credit's rate. So nobody is going to pull this out of this business and bankrupt it in a couple of years' time. It's a slow payout if you decide to abandon ship. And I think that's very important. And then, as I said earlier, our system is so simple. Capital account. The profits are split. 35% of the profits went to this young man because he plowed back into the business. 6% of the profits went to my daughter Ann because she used part of her capital account to purchase a home and to be a stay-at-home mom. A good use of the money. I'm not arguing a bit. But we split the earnings of the business purely according to capital account. Now, with a young man coming in, how are we going to give him a little extra boost? And would you review what we're looking for in a new partner?
All right. So just a little preamble, just short one. So when I was away at college, I just thought of this. My dad had 3 what he called junior partners set up totally different. But those 3 guys were on the scene helping run Willow Bend when my dad was 52, 53, 54, right in that area, right? So I'm 50, right? We got a proposal in front of Ryan, and if you look at this handout that my dad gave you, it says right at the top, draft copy, right? Because we're thinking we're coming here to this meeting, and you guys are going to teach us what's right and what's wrong with us, and so we set it up right, and Ryan gets a square deal, and it's a win-win situation. So we're interested in feedback because we didn't have some fancy $300 an hour lawyer write this up. This is something that came out of his computer with our input. So take a look at it and be critical. So those 3 guys kind of kept the business going until I came back, right? And then they went off and they built their own farms or did whatever they do, right? And so Ryan's coming in about the same time in that stage, and so it's kind of repeating itself. And When I came in, I brought in cattle. And in here, we're describing a plan for Ryan to buy cattle and bring that in if he wants to. He can make money somewhere else and bring it in. But we did put the bar at $100,000, right? If he wants to buy into this business, he's got to start with $100,000. How he comes up with that is up to him. We're going to help him if he wants to do the cattle, owns the cattle in our herd like I did in 1991. We'll co-sign a loan for him to get him going as long as he can get the bank to go along with it. He may have a great aunt die and leave him $200,000, right? And so then he could bring that. Then he could bring that to the table. So he's kind of started this process as of Friday, right? We visited with him on Friday, and we'll see how it goes. He's gonna sit with us at our monthly meetings 4 times a year. We'll have quarterly reports to go over. We'll have decisions to make. He'll have a chance to weigh in. He'll have a chance to hear what goes on. He'll have a chance to see whether this is a good idea to be in this group at Willow Bend, or I don't want any part of that. Right? So he'll be meeting with us 4 times a year while he's trying to build up his equity. And then if he gets his equity, he likes what he sees, we like the way things are going, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we can make it formal. He will become a limited partner and get that capital account. And we will then we will then co-sign or be willing to co-sign another loan to get so that he can buy $300,000 if he puts up the 100. So again, we're not gifting it to him. He's earning every penny all the way along, but a chance to be involved in a very profitable business, a successful business. We're hoping he sticks it out. We hope it works, and we're hoping you guys give us some feedback on whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. Did I miss anything?
That's good. Thank you, John. What are we looking at in you had about 8 points here. So the other stuff is all about being being good with the cattle, being good with people, being a leader, being able to take risks, being able to make decisions, being involved in the industry, being committed, being passionate about it. So that's kind of all the I don't know what you call them, soft skills or something that he brings to the table. So that's kind of what Ryan's already doing, and then the last step is getting enough money to buy into the business.
John, would you go back and talk about how you behaved when you came home from college to the farm? And you talked about the money that you brought in, the cattle you brought in, but how about how you interacted and what you expected?
All right, so 1989 is when I first came back, and my John Karsis, Jason's older brother, left and started a heifer operation, and that left an opportunity for me to come back. So I came back and I took over the calf department. So I was in charge of raising calves and young heifers. And I think John was the herdsman at the time, and then Rodney Brown, who's gone on and built his own dairy, he was actually my boss for the first 3 years, right? So I reported to Rodney, Rodney reported to my dad. So I was kind of coming in, not at the bottom, but not far off the bottom. And so I did calves for quite a while before Rodney went and did his own thing, and then John and I kind of moved around and split up the decision making there. So is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, you came back with humility.
Yeah. And I didn't know all that much about what was going on in the farm, so it actually helped.
I think we've pretty well covered it. I hope there's some questions that perhaps some of these people can answer for you. There's some. Yes, Bill.
So the first question comes to mind is you have several other people with talent and desire in your organization similar to Ryan. So how do you decide who gets to be a part
right, good question. So the fact that Ryan came to us and said, hey, what about that partnership? And there has actually, and Bill's our neighbor, so he knows the people in our business, and the people that we would consider be eligible. Some of them have decided, no, I don't want the risk, I don't want the responsibility. I like just being a W-2 employee, and that's about all I want to do. So some of them turned us down, right? And others, there's not those soft skills that I talked about, 100%, right? They either don't have the passion, they don't have the focus, or the drive, the fire in their belly to get things done on the dairy, like we see in Ryan. So, yeah, the third thing is that all the partners have to agree on it, right? So that includes John, myself, my dad, my mom, and the Nedros who were here yesterday but aren't here today. So if we can all agree, hey, this guy or this lady's got what it takes, then we can approach them. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, right. As you're not careful, they all look key numbers, right?
Correct.
So if one person disagrees, that means like it's out of the question?
It's pretty well dead. Fortunately, we haven't done it very much, right? And we're all in agreement that we think Ryan's got the stuff to make it happen. So.
How long's your monthly meeting? And who all attends? Does it vary from month to month depending on the contract?
Yeah. So January's been really busy. We're trying to set goals and direction for the next month. So we've got that. It's kind of a special meeting in itself. The pay raises we got 50 employees. We go through the employees and decide who gets what this next year. So that's another separate meeting by itself. So the normal monthly meeting where you got the agenda, where you go over your debt, you go over your profit and loss, and other items like capital projects and things like that. We start at 3 and we hope to end by 6. If there's extra long stuff, we'll start at 2. Hopefully end by 6. Sometimes we end by 6 and we don't finish, right? And then some of that stuff, mostly the profit and loss statement, hate to say this, we don't cover. We just hand it out because we never quite get that far, depending on how things go. Good question.
I've got one more question. This may be unimportant to others, but just in case it is useful.
Yep.
Why do you partners want more partners? I understand why people want to be partners. Why do you want to have more partners?
All right, excellent question. So we talked a lot about this yesterday. There's differences between generations, all right? So this is my answer, and I don't know what these guys will say, right? And John said it in his little spiel. As my dad gets older, he wants the business to slow down and take a breather, right? He says, enjoy what you've built. I'm still, even though I'm 50, right, I'm still want to do stuff, right? But I can see the point where I'm starting to lose steam. And in order for your business to maintain its competitiveness, you need some energy, you need some drive, and you need somebody in there to push it along, right? And like John said, I need somebody to pick up the ball and keep running with it at some point. And Danny said yesterday that transition could take 10 years. Well, 10 years, I'm going to be 60, right? And maybe I'm not going to want to be pushing that ball when I'm 60. Today, it's okay, right? So I'm hoping that Ryan and people like him are going to want to be pushing that ball for our business. And the Nedros are in their 60s, so they're not going to be doing it. So you need to bring in that new, young energy to balance out some of that old, like, hey, let's take a breather and coast. All right, right up front and then in the back.
The Nedros, she's your sister?
The Nedros are not.
Oh, they're not family.
No, they had some prime real estate, and they had a dairy farm, and they were looking for a partner.
Okay.
So,
How did
so we
your
partnered.
siblings that didn't go into this, how do they feel about what you've done? And are they glad how it's all worked out? And
All right, so one of the secrets to maintaining a good partnership is to make money. And as long as they're getting a good return for their investment, they seem to be pretty happy. Right? They don't complain too much. Like if the football team is going to the Super Bowl every year, nobody's firing the coach. Right? But if you don't make the playoffs, you get Rex Ryan. Right? So they haven't complained too much. My youngest sister has just come back from Wyoming, and she now helps in the office. And so she sits in on the board meeting. I think this is her second year, so she's more involved than she used to be. And so far, she's been pretty supportive. So that'll be interesting as it goes down the road. And they're limited partners. So operating partners, the Nedros and myself. So we're the ones who Farm Credit's got all my personal assets tied up, right? So and they're not. So they don't have as much say as what goes on, but they can pull their money out. All right, in the back.
If Brian makes a bunch of money and buys 5% of your farm, where does that 5% come from?
All right, so that goes to Farm Credit, right? Because we continually to have debt. So his money will go to pay down debt, and then he'll get capital account in exchange. Is that?
Your percentage, is everybody's percentage net decrease?
Yes. Yep, by a little bit. Right? Right. Exactly.
Is there a CEO? I read somewhere that in some of the information that I've received from you guys, that it's kind of like a 75% people have to say it's a good idea before you go and do something. Is there kind of like the CEO who's the head of the group, or is those meetings everybody's kind of created equal? I don't, is there a CEO? That's a question.
Yeah, technically, I guess I'm the CEO. But what I think you're trying to get at is how are decisions made?
Yeah.
Who calls the shot? So up until today, and I hope it doesn't change, but it's kind of, even though that my dad and John and my mom sit at the table, they're limited partners, and the Nedros and I are operating partners. The operating partners are supposed to have the vote. We've kind of run it by consensus so that if we're not all in agreement, we don't go anywhere. And so far, it's frustrating enough to us that when we're not going anywhere, we tend to be more willing to compromise. So I remember in 2008, we were supposed to build a barn, but we couldn't agree on the manure system to go with it, right? And so we didn't build it. And that drove us nutty enough that by 2009, parties caved on what they wanted to do, and they just said, well, let's just get this barn built. And so that's been helpful, that there's been this drive to go. Today, there's a little bit less of that, and like we're getting older, and so I think we're becoming a little bit content with not going anywhere. So that's a struggle in itself. So it's mostly been the decision, if we're talking major decisions, we're not talking about, what kind of teat to buy, right? But if we're going to buy the next neighbor's farm for $1 million, we all got to be on board. And if we're not on board, then we don't do it. And then we let the opportunity go, and then we all kick ourselves for not agreeing, right?
Yeah, so that can be stifling that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, the boss is standing up. It's usually a sign that we're about done.
Several last things. In Clifton Springs, they don't let me have a microphone anymore. Ever since I gave the children's sermon, and the lay leader came up to me and said, George, that was supposed to be the children's moment, not the children's hour. Over here on this little table is the gospel according to George, It's various handouts at previous meetings that I attended, and I'd be delighted to have you come up and take one home, and it's good reading. At least I think it is. The agenda, when we have a meeting, there's an agenda. This guy provides an agenda, and he pretty much keeps us on course, doesn't he, John? There's a lot of discussion, and we get off the subject, but he brings us back on. We don't waste, well, we waste some, but not too much. One last thing, our oldest granddaughter now has reached the age of 25, and the trust agreement says that you can't touch them. In fact, we don't even tell the grandchildren, we don't even tell his grandchildren or his children that they have a trust. When they're 18, they have to sign that crummy letter. So then they know. From 18 to 25, they know they've got this trust that they can tap into some future date. 25, they can tap into it, but again, that 5% a year limitation. So if they want to convert that trust amount to a loan to the farm, we would pay them out over a 20-year period, again at Farm Credit's rate of interest on the loan. The other option is for them to join the partnership. And our oldest granddaughter has decided, and I hope they all do, to become a limited partner, and she's seen how beneficial it was for her mother. And in her family, that she would like to also be a limited partner. And again, the limit on a limited partner is 5% a year, and unless we are flush with money and we agree to it, 5% a year is the limiting factor. We have enjoyed talking to you. Contact us if you see some flaws in what we're proposing. And thanks so much for giving us the opportunity. Thank you.